This presentation unpacks the PB Youth Accelerator Toolkit. You can see the introductory page of the toolkit here, and it uses this sort of consistent branding, if you like. We use colors a lot, and the first section of the toolkit goes through the house metaphor and then talks about the developing of the enabling conditions for participatory budgeting, talks about the foundations, that is the values upon which your processes need to be built, and then goes into this a sort of stepped model, stages of participatory budgeting, how to set up a co-design project and all those other aspects that are around the actual decision making on public budgets, and really then talks about how to make sure that learning is built into this process. It's important to recognize that this is written almost specifically for a school-based environment, which can be very undemocratic in its own space. But I think the model and the processes and some of the tools can be used in all sorts of different settings. So although sometimes the language might feel like it's only for teachers, it is also for a wider audience. So here is the house metaphor that we've used as a way of trying to structure what can be a very complex process. So it starts with preparing the ground, so building leadership, political and organizational buy-in. I think, Hemi, you mentioned that, creating local champions, and the enabling conditions outline the details around that. And also we link all of those enabling conditions to some of our case studies. So we reference real life examples where we feel some of the research we've done links to those things. It then moves to the firm foundations, the values that underpin a successful PB project, and then moves into the actual process, the 6 steps that we believe that you will need to go through in a kind of linear but iterative manner to develop your project. And then we put in stuff around reflection, developing skills, how to evaluate your project. And really what we're trying to say is that this is changing what you might call a pedagogy where we fill empty buckets with knowledge towards a process where people learn by taking control and having agency and feeling that they are in control of their school environment or any other context. So here are the aspects of preparing the ground, the enabling conditions. There's leadership, political buy-in and support for local democracy, reflective learning and measuring impact, so making sure that you consider how you do that, the building of local champions, valuing participation, making sure that you kind of use the best practice around youth participation, about creating connections and networks, about focusing on the opportunities for innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. So how do we use PB perhaps as part of a curriculum that is trying to prepare young people for whatever challenges they face in their later life, and then through the importance of accessing facilitated technical support and training. And we identify some of those that might help you build your PB and some that might help cement your PB to make sure that it repeats, but also obviously many of those will cross over those 2 domains. So that's the first step, is to really think through how you prepare the ground for your PB process. We then move on to the firm foundations, and these are really the values that we believe should underpin participatory budgeting processes. We went through a process of looking at values developed in Scotland, through the work of the UK PB network many years ago, through what's been happening in the USA, and then we tried to synthesize that into these 9 values of cooperation, creativity, democracy, growth, learning, impact, openness, and participation. And we believe that the values establish the cultural foundations upon which you can place your work. We realize that not every value will be considered of equal importance in different contexts, so we're not saying you swallow this, but actually you use this as a launch pad for having conversations about what values and therefore what outcomes you are seeking through your own PB project. And each of the values we try and put in easy read, if you like, or undigestible statements, but then try and look deeper. And there's quite a lot of thinking going behind those high level values. We then move into the building phase. So we identify 6 key stages for developing a participatory budgeting project. The first is co-design and preparation. Very important to try and ensure that young people are part of that co-design phase, then sharing, informing and supporting people to participate within the process, lots of stuff around branding and media and how you do outreach work. Tools for generating ideas and refining projects so that ideas that young people generate are feasible and deliverable and fit within the rules and regulations that might be required within school or other budgeting context. You need to deliberate and then decide which projects will go forward. PB does have a degree of competition within it, but we hope it's healthy competition and designed, as we said, to elevate everyone's voices within the process. And then there's the do and deliver. So how do young people not only decide how resources are spent, but actually then deliver those resources? And within that, there is an ongoing process of reflection, refinement, and repetition. We really know that PB grows and learns over a number of cycles. And again, we understand this is an iterative process, and we try and give you tools to do a design thinking process so that you can tailor this to your own context. So, for example, this is one of the key stages, and we would have a conversation about who is in the co-design team. So in schools, the co-design team may include representatives of the entire school community, including pupils, teachers, administrative staff and parents. And then we would link that to an example. So in this case, the Arizona USA school PB, where they've embedded PB within a whole range of schools. And so you can then go and seek more information, because we believe that they were really particularly focused on ensuring good quality co-design within their process. So that's how the toolkit is really access to further information. So for again, another graphic, this is a table which helps identify and signpost you to different bits of information around perhaps capacity building workshops for teachers, thematic lessons in schools, presentation meetings, open consultation points. We then have a whole section which is about developing people's skills and learning by doing. So we present all of the cases that we've looked at through our process. I think we looked at about 20, 30 different cases. We reviewed those in depth. And some of those are listed in the graphic on the bottom of the screen. Those are all ones within developed by the Polish partners. And in particular, the 2 Polish partners are constantly engaged in themselves delivering school-based PB. And so we identify where, again, those projects we felt matched particular enabling conditions, so that you can start to find your way through all of those case studies to the ones which might be most relevant. And there's another table on that same graphic, which I can't show because Toolkit's very big, where we also do the same process for the values. And then we have produced the DIY manual, the do-it-yourself manual, and this is something we'll touch on after the break. We'll look at that in depth, and that includes loads of templates, tools and resources to be used and adapted, but we'll explore that more. But for example, also that's the website, so we're trying to develop this sort of informational access point through the website to different cases. So all of the depth of the case study work is accessed through the website, not within the toolkit, other than through short sort of case study and examples. So those are the main sections of the toolkit, but then it goes on in depth. So we have further sections where we unpack the values and the enabling conditions further. So we realize there's so much information, we try to kind of create an easy read at the beginning, not too much information, but then we do unpack those in greater depth. So we look at, for example, country profiles. We've written little statements about how we see democracy evolving and how that affects PB and its culture in different contexts. There's a set of blogs that have been written by people we've connected with, some of them by myself, but also other people that are available. There's links to some other resource guides, other toolkits for youth participation, and quite a big section on design thinking. So that again came from our Spanish partners at the University of Granada, who specialize in design thinking. You know, how you go through a process of developing a project through empathizing with the stakeholders, defining the problem, ideating solutions, prototyping, and then actually testing them. And we see PB really as a design thinking methodology, where you start with a complex problem and you build relationships, and then you go through a process to solve that problem. And so in that way, I think link to that learning experience. So there's a couple of, so yes, there's lots of information buried deeper within the toolkit as you read on. So it's in total 129 pages, which is a lot. And I know we couldn't actually get everything in, and at times we had many debates and banged our head over what should we leave in and what should we not leave in. And but we tried to put everything that we didn't manage to put in the toolkit onto the website. So that's all the case studies and the further information around that. So we would like to thank you for listening to this presentation.